Good afternoon, folks. This is Robert Chappell, Executive Editor of Madison365 with your daily update for Friday, February 12th. Congratulations. We made it another week. Good job, everybody. The update today is brought to you by Community Shares of Wisconsin, highlighting their backyard heroes for the month of February. Lavina Hill is a volunteer with Fair Share CSA Coalition. She works at AFT Local 243 as the office manager. That's American Federation of Teachers. She just completed 6 years on the board of Fair Share CSA Coalition and was introduced to CSA being Community Supported Agriculture, when she moved to Madison all the way back in 2001. She became a big fan of small farmers and of the work they do and is happy to advocate for them. In her spare time, she mostly enjoys spending time with her lovely Labradors, Floyd and Otis, and I regret deeply that we do not have a photo of Floyd and Otis. For more information or to volunteer for the Fair Share CSA Coalition, their website is csacoalition.org, or you can call 608-226-0300. Our second backyard hero for February is Myra Enlow with the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign. Myra is a part of a grassroots action network and practices democracy daily, including efforts to bring fair voting maps to Wisconsin. She believes that it takes all of us to protect our democracy and build the society in which we want to live. In her spare time, she finds joy spending time with the family and friends, biking, reading, hiking, and gardening. For more information or to volunteer with the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, the website is wisdc.org, or you can call 608-255-4260. And we appreciate Community Shares of Wisconsin being a supporter of the program today. On to the coronavirus situation today is looking pretty decent. I'm especially on the vaccine side of things. We'll get to that in a second. Yesterday, you remember, we were back up over 1,000 new cases yesterday. We're back under 1,000 today. Okay, so that's the decent news. 938 new cases today. That's out of 5,545 tests. So testing goes down as compared to yesterday. Cases also go down. So that's what you'd expect. But the percentage of positives today was also down 16.9% for the day. But again, we don't worry about that number so much because that's not the 5,500 tests. That's not all the tests that have been run. That's just the new results. The first time people being tested for the first time or testing positive for the first time after several negative tests. So when you look at all the tests that have been done, including those that have been repeated testing, which like UW students are getting tested twice a week. Healthcare providers are being tested like every day. When you look at all the tests over the past 7 days, 3.5% are positive. Now, I've been harping for weeks that we try to get that under 3, right? So we're getting there. That peaked at about 14 back in November when things got really bad. So to be creeping down, it was 3.6 yesterday. It was 3.9 2 days ago. It was 4.0 3 days ago. Slowly but surely, heading down toward 3. Now, 3 is not a magic number, right? When we get to 3, that doesn't mean we can all throw away our masks and go to concerts again. That's not going to happen. But 3 is kind of the number that epidemiologists and public health people will say is kind of a baseline where you don't want to be above 3. And you can start to make some policy changes when you're under 3. You can start to ease restrictions and open schools. In fact, we didn't get this specifically from Dane County, but it's pretty reasonable to infer that Dane County eased restrictions because the the countywide positive test rate was under 2. Now, part of the reason Dane County is under 2 is UW is testing so much. Without UW, Dane County is at 3.4. With UW, it's at 1.8. There's a lot of testing happening on campus. That doesn't mean it's false. It doesn't mean the numbers falsely suppressed or low or anything like that. It's just, it means that there's a lot of testing happening on campus, which is great, because then every time they pop a positive test, they can isolate that student or that staff member and stop it right there. Stop it from spreading any further. So, and which then in turn helps the county, right? UW is not isolated. It's part of the community. So if you can isolate the campus cases, keep them from spreading to the rest of the city, that's good news. That's great. Now, a couple other numbers here. Our daily averages are continue to go down. Our 7-day average of new cases is 832 now. That's far lower than it's been in a long time. The other piece of good news is we report 11 fatalities again today. That's the second day in a row with 11 for whatever reason. Last week, Friday, we reported 28. So, in fact, that's going down. And our 7-day average of deaths reported is 19. That's the first time we've been below 20 in months. So, still 11 fatalities is bad news. We don't like that. But the fatalities are going down. And keeping in mind, fatalities are like a 4 to 6 week lagging indicator, right? The deaths we're reporting today, even more than that, actually, because those 11 deaths actually occurred over the past 3 or 4 weeks. And those are people who were infected 3 or 4 weeks before that. So the deaths that we report today are looking back on the conditions on the ground 6 to 8 weeks ago. So what that means is if these numbers continue to hold the spread numbers, the 3.5% positive test rate, the 800 new cases per day, if those continue to go down, the deaths will continue to go down following that. So 8 weeks from now, we maybe will be below 10 deaths per day, and then eventually down to 0. That's the ideal. It was 3.4, JJ. Did I say 2.4? The countywide number without EW is 3.4. Sorry, I just saw your comment. All right. Let's talk about vaccinations for a minute. We had the best news about vaccinations right now is that they're accelerating quickly. And I said this a couple weeks ago. I said I thought this would happen, and I hoped it would happen, and it's happening. You know, a couple weeks ago when they first started reporting vaccination data, it was about 5,000 people a day were getting the second dose. So you got 5,000 people a day who are finishing the series. And I said, that's got to have to be more than that every day if we want to get this done. Today, we have 25,000 new people who have finished their second dose that are being reported. So that puts us at, sorry, I have the wrong spreadsheet here. That puts us at 213,000 people have completed the vaccine. That's over 5% of the adult population now has gotten both doses and is therefore vaccinated. They're not necessarily entirely immune yet, because after your second shot, it takes like a week for your body to build up the immunity to respond to the shot, right? You can't like throw your mask away as soon as you get that second shot. But we have 213,000 people, about 5% of the adult population, has gotten both shots and is vaccinated. We have about 460,000 people who've gotten the first shot, but not the second yet. Now, the problem is we're getting all these shots to people, but we're not getting them to people equally. Remember when I say 5% of the population is vaccinated? Roughly. 10% of the white population is vaccinated. 3% of the black population is vaccinated. 8% of the American Indian, Native American population is vaccinated. I think that's partly due that actually they're outpacing the other people of color groups because the tribal governments are actually administering vaccines pretty aggressively. 3% of the Hispanic Latino population is vaccinated. That's not great. That is it's partly because of access issues. It's partly because of who we've prioritized. Actually, you know what? All those numbers I gave you were off a little bit. I'm sorry. Those were the numbers for people who've gotten at least one dose. So let me go back and say that again. 10% of the white population has gotten one dose. 3% of the black population has gotten one dose, at least. 7.8% of the Native American population, 3% of the Hispanic population has gotten at least one dose. So now, sorry, I had the wrong thing selected on this website. 3.3% of the white population has gotten both doses. 0.9% of the black population has gotten both doses. 2.5% of the Native American, 2.6% of Asian American, and 1.2% of the Hispanic Latino population has gotten their vaccine, the second dose. A long way to go to catch up. But it's partly access, it's partly who we prioritize, it's but the types of people who are in that 1A group and the 1B group. Right? We haven't quite gotten to the essential workers yet. The essential workers who are our heroes last spring, but still don't deserve $15 an hour. Sorry for the little bit of political slipping in there. So we haven't got to those job types yet. There's also well-earned mistrust between the medical establishment and Black communities. There's information issues. There's language issues. There's a lot of issues to overcome. We are told that efforts are in place. We don't know what they are yet. I'm hoping that it'll even out. There's deep disparities early on in the effect of COVID. Black and brown people were more likely to get it, and if they got it, more likely to die from it. Those evened out over time. It did hit. It has it just in terms of the statistics of cases and deaths did even out over time. But the impact did not. The economic impact is still, and the long-term health implications, the financial burden of hospitalization, all still disproportionately affect Black and brown people. So one would hope that the vaccinations would actually be disproportionate in their favor, but they're not. So there's work going on. I know there's work going on to try to get awareness, to try to get vaccines to those folks, and to try to even that out over time. And eventually we'll all get it. We'll get the 80% of the entire state or whatever, but Corey mentions this email from the dentist office. It talked about gum disease. I've heard this too. Yeah, people. I think it's hard to know, or people just kind of don't know or don't acknowledge how the impact of dental health and oral health and overall health. That's another whole issue of access, right? What's wild about this, JJ mentions that there are people of color who work in healthcare. It's not quite proportional to the population. But even within the healthcare profession, it seems like the vaccines which are supposed to be the first people to get it, it's still disproportionate even within the healthcare field. So that's an unfortunate thing. Let us take a short pause. We'll come back. I'll talk a little bit about the impeachment trial. It was kind of dull today. But I'll mention a couple of things, and then we'll get some other really, really, really good local news stories that you'll actually want to hear about. So stay with us. I'll be back right after this.
A year ago, our world changed, yet so many things remain the same. We still drink our coffee black, because that's how we like it. G hasn't moved his shop, and Alice's garden still grows, even in the cold. We still paint murals that celebrate our culture and honor our community. Sherman Phoenix is still standing, and Black Lens is still showing movies, only now they're on your TV. A year ago, our world changed, yet so many things remain the same. We still go to work, school, and raise our kids one day at a time. We laugh, love, and live, all in the same breath, and fight the good fight, even when we have no fight left in us. It's who we are, it's where we come from, and it's what we do. We are survivors, overcomers. We are Milwaukee.
All right, we are back, and I'll say just a couple words about the impeachment trial, which is wrapping up. The defense had 16 hours to present its case, and it used 2. They talked for 2 hours, and didn't they kept playing videos of like it was a lot of whataboutism. It was something like a 2-minute video of Democrats saying the word fight. Like, if you think that Trump saying fight made his people go fight, well, Democrats say the word fight too. And it was just a montage of, political speeches where you say, we're going to fight for you. We're going to fight, But the weird thing was they put like this dramatic, like action movie music under it. Which is very strange. I don't think that was necessary. But it wasn't a particularly spirited defense, and it didn't have to be, because they know this is going to likely result in acquittal anyway. And now they're in a 4-hour question and answer period where senators can write a question down, send it to the desk, the clerk reads it, and whoever it's directed at can answer it. And it's a little useless because most of them are just the Democrats address questions to the House managers. Republicans address questions to the defense, and the question is basically like, so isn't it true that your side wins? And it's not very dispositive. There was one question Bernie Sanders asked, so did Trump actually win the election or not? And his defense attorneys declined to answer that question. They just said it's not relevant, which is I don't know. All right, so that's that. Not a lot to talk about. I would expect that the closing arguments will be made tomorrow, and I will probably vote tomorrow too, or Sunday perhaps. All right, let's talk about some local news. This is a really fun story that's on the site today. If you go look at Madison365.org and read this story. Eleanor Falk is a student up at UW Stout up in Menominee. She is a member of the Oneida Nation, and she was an intern for a couple of summers with the Great Lakes Indian Wildlife and Fish Commission. Fish and Wildlife. Sorry, not Great Lakes Indian Fish and Wildlife Commission. And that organization published a series of children's books called Growing Up Ojibwe, about Ojibwe culture. And Eleanor Falk, this college sophomore, built a video game called Growing Up Ojibwe. And you can play it online. It's a free online thing, and it's got 5 levels where you learn all sorts of different things about Ojibwe culture, from starting with like treaty rights, which, tribal sovereignty, spearfishing, wild rice gathering, maple syrup gathering, all these things that are really important and endemic to the Ojibwe culture, sort of gamified, so that middle school kids of Ojibwe heritage can learn their own heritage, but also for us white people who don't know this stuff can learn it too. And it strikes me, just having tinkered with it a little bit, I haven't really played it a lot, although Naomi Wolf, who wrote the story, actually did go through a few of the levels. And in fact, when I asked her at our meeting earlier this week, is that story almost done? She kind of said like, oh, sorry, yeah, I've been playing the game, so I haven't written it yet. But you know how Oregon Trail taught us Gen X kids about westward expansion, whatever? It's kind of the same thing. It's like the spearfishing part of it is like actually you're trying to spear the fish, but you're actually learning about that treaty right and that the cultural importance of that practice and stuff. So it's very, very cool. Read the story. It's at Madison365.org right now. Also today on the site, Ron Dunlap played for the Chicago Bulls and later became an educator in Appleton and just a giant, literally and figuratively, of the Fox Valley, Fox Cities African-American community. He was a principal in the school district up there, a teacher for a long time, and then a principal. And he's also on the board of Wisconsin Public Radio. He was on the board of African Heritage Incorporated. Just a real, just one of the elder statesmen of the Black community up there. Passed away last year. 2019. And there's an effort underway to rename Lincoln Elementary School in Appleton after Ron Dunlap. Very clearly, they're saying we're not trying to get rid of Lincoln. Don't worry. But we do want to honor this educator who was such an important part of the community. So they're just in the early stages of that. You remember, if you know Madison at all, you'll remember that Madison recently finalized the process to rename Falk Elementary School after Miss Malele Shikasa-Anana. And that took a year and a half to do. So it's just you want to get the community buy-in, right? You don't want to just do that suddenly. So that process is underway in Appleton. They're seeking input from the community right now. So if you're in the Fox Cities, if you're in Appleton, if you go to the website right now, you can, there's a link to a form. You can put in your thoughts and your opinions. So we will keep an eye on that process as it goes along. And then finally today we have a profile of Tarek Moody, who is a Milwaukee guy. He's a radio host on 88.9, the public radio station in Milwaukee. And that show now is getting syndicated nationally. It's getting picked up on public radio stations all across the country. And part of his thing is that Black music is often compartmentalized. Right? You have a hip hop station and you have like a jazz station, without the thought process that Black music is all of those things and a lot of stuff in between. So his show, radio, tries to bridge those gaps and play all the music. But also he's just kind of like a Renaissance man. Like he's also learning to brew sake and wants to open a sake bar. So that's like his next thing. And he's got a degree in architecture and just really, really cool, interesting guy. Good guy to get to know. So he was also on our 2020 Black Power list, most influential African-American leaders in Wisconsin. By the way, going back to Ron Dunlap, he was also on our power list back in our second one back in 2016. So just for what it's worth. So Mackenzie Crum talked to Tarek Moody, did a great profile on him. That's on the website today as well. So that is that's what I have for you today. Hope you stay warm and safe over the weekend. As I mentioned earlier, I really want more people to tune into the news. I'm a news person. I want more people to consume the news. So take a second, hit the share button on this, subscribe to us on YouTube, spread the word, get more people to tune in and watch. If there's really value this daily sort of just quick recap of the news, give us a review, endorse us, share it, whatever you can do. And but until we see you again, I'll be back Monday with more news and more COVID updates. Hopefully it continues to be good news. And have a great weekend. We'll see you soon.
This is 365 Media.